Today I'm going to talk about the Complete Bard's Handbook for 2nd edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. Now, the Bard was a class in 1st edition, but in 1st edition, in order to become a Bard, you had to go through 5 to 7 levels of Fighter, and then 6 to 9 levels worth of Thief, and then you could become a Bard. And the Bard spells were Druid spells. And most players were not willing to do this, so it was very rare to see somebody who played a Bard. But if in the cases where they did, it made for a really powerful class, because you had possibly as many as 7 10-side hit dice, and you could roll to hit like a 7th level fighter with an extra attack every other round. And you had the powers of a 9th level thief if you went the long way. And you also had all the Bard abilities, including all those Druid spells. And possibly as many as 10 more 6-side hit dice. So for something like the GDQ series, it was a really good class to run. But most people didn't want to bother, so I only saw a couple of Bards ever. But a lot of people said, well, why can't I just start off as a Bard? And there were a few Bard classes in the Dragon, even the Jester class, which is like a variation of Bard. But in 2nd edition, they made a Bard class that you could start out. And so let's take a look. Okay, we got some good art. This is from, I think, the Curse of the Azure Bonds. Maybe. No, it's not. It's similar art, though. Okay, and it's got advertisements showing you what the different complete brown books are. And it says this one is the 6th book, but my book says it's the 8th book. So one of those is a misprint. If this is the 8th book, I'm not sure what 6 and 7 were, because I didn't get all the books. So it goes down repeating some of the stuff in the player's handbook. So theoretically, well, you could use this instead of the player's handbook. The 2nd edition Bard got 6-sided hit dice, and saving throws were, and roll to hit were pretty much like a thief. The spell progression, you didn't get a spell, you got magic user spells, not druid spells, and you didn't start getting them until 2nd level. And when I played a Bard, when I saw other people play a Bard, we always reached, at some point after 7th level, we would say, oh man, I wish I'd played a mage, I'd be casting 4th level spells by now. Because you'd start off using all the different Bard abilities, but you'd start using magic more and more and more until that's all you were doing, and you were like a 2nd-rate magic user with a few extra hit points. Now, the 1st edition Bards could do all the Thieves' abilities, but the 2nd edition ones could only do 4 of them. And you got less points that you could add to them than a Thief. So they were less good at them. And this is a little handy chart in case you are a DM and you want to know how good a Bard is, an NPC Bard is at something, and you don't want to customize it like the player would. This is a chart kind of like the 1st edition chart for Thieves, which that 1st edition chart for Thieves is included in the DM's guide as an aid to the DMs. And here's a repeat of what the different racial bonuses are for these abilities, what the dexterity bonuses are, and there are kits in here. And the different kits have different bonuses for these abilities, ranging from the Gallant is the worst at picking pockets at minus 25%, while the Gypsy and the Jester are the best at plus 10%. At Detect Noise, the Herald and the Meistersinger are the best. Climbing Walls, the Juggler is the best. And at reading languages, the Lore Master is the best, and the Scald is worse at minus 25%. Now, here's some racial things for some other kinds of bards. I'll get into those in the kits, but this information is not included in the kit, so I'm showing it to you now. And here's what the effects of wearing different kind of armor have on these abilities. Now, if you want the bard to wear armor he's not allowed, here's a chart showing how bad you're penalized for trying to do these. So if you're trying to wear plate mail and climb walls, you're at minus 95%. Basically means you can't do it. Can't even try it. Okay, here's ability scores. If you're trying to roll a bard with different methods. There's some good picture of a barroom brawl while the bard is there singing. Okay, so the heart of this book is the kits. Now, the first kit is the True Bard. It's an attempt to recreate the first edition Bard, only keep it in second edition. And I don't think it's a very good attempt. But all the bards get some bonus non-weapon proficiencies, all these kits. Now, I got this book because I thought that second edition Bard sucked, and I hoped this book would improve it. And it made it interesting, but not so much I'd want to play one. So the bonus proficiencies for the True Bard are singing, musical instrument, reading and writing their native tongue, and local history. Okay. So another kind of bard is the Blade. These are like those guys at the circus who throw blades at the target with a woman staying in front of it and miss her, but they also have combat abilities with the blade. So, their bonus non-weapon proficiencies are reading and writing their native tongue, local history, blind fighting, and juggling. Now, the Charlatan is the con man bard. And they have different abilities to con you. And the Gallant, the bard's supposed to be an amalgam of fighter, thief, and magic user, and they're not very good at being an amalgam, but this is an attempt to make them more emphasis on the fighter, the Gallant is. Yeah, so their bonus proficiencies include dancing, etiquette, ancient languages, poetry. Okay, that's the Gypsy Bard. Here's some Gypsy Bards. It's 4 of them playing instruments while 1 of them dances. Herald would be good in like a medieval campaign where you have lots of knights. This might be something you might want to do, but I don't think so. Here's a Herald Bard being backstabbed. Okay, so there were several jester classes that appeared in the Dragon magazine sort of as a joke, and here's a jester class, a jester kit. In case you want to be a bard, use a jester. And there's a juggler, sort of like the thief acrobat. And a lore master, in case you want to be good at digging through books and finding stuff. Here's a lore master trying to decipher the script while playing his instrument. The Meistersinger, sort of like the Pied Piper. Here's a Meistersinger charming some animals. The Riddle Master, good at answering riddles. So there are bonuses to allow you to do that. It seems like that ought to be a role-playing thing and not something you have skills in. But here's a Riddle Master playing chess with a dragon. And the Scald is like the Viking Bard. And Thespian, that's actor. But it's not necessarily gay, as a lot of people like to twist that word for some reason. Okay, and then they have some demi-humans as bards. In the player's handbook, it says bards can only be human or half-elf. But now they've got some kits for dwarves, elves, gnomes, and halflings. And some of these are the ones that humans can be, and some of them are specialized for a race. Like the dwarven enchanter seemed kind of interesting. He'd somebody who'd beat a drum and help lead the dwarves while they make stuff, sort of like the black chants that they would do while I worked back in the slave days and in the Jim Crow days. There's an elven minstrel. I'm not sure where you need a specialized... Here's a dwarven chanter beating the drum while the other dwarves work. An elven minstrel. I'm not sure where you need an elven minstrel class. A gnome professor. That doesn't seem so good either. A halfling whistler. Seems like the Meistersinger would be a better class for halflings. Why do you need a specialized whistling class? And it talks about multi-class bards. You know, dwarves could be fighter chanters or fighter skalds. Halflings could be thief jugglers. Sorry. Okay, and there's some new non-weapon proficiencies, including acting, chanting, craft instrument, and here's the ability lists with all the new ones added to them. Crowd working, poetry, whistling, humming. Here's a bard playing. Lots of pictures of just the bard playing. And it goes into some detail about how to use the different abilities, but you only got 4, so... And there's some new spells. Most of these spells, like Alter Instrument, are... I hate to waste a spell on that, but some of them are interesting, like Sound Bubble. It's only a first level spell, and it creates a bubble of sound where the sound doesn't get out, so you can be the bard playing your instrument with the party without attracting the attention of the monsters. There's an improved magic mouth, instant audience. I'm not sure why that's needed. I'd hate to waste a 3rd level spell on instant audience. But here's a really cool one called Wall of Sound. It's a wall that makes a blaring sound that prevents spell casting on the other side of it. And prevents the enemies from talking to each other even. Conjure cabinet. And there's a few magic items, but none of them are as cool as the first edition Instruments of the Bard. There's a whole bunch of musical instruments and their prices. And there's pictures of instruments. This is something handy. Show you instruments here. I'm not sure what bard would carry the harpsichord around in the dungeon, but yeah, or the pipe organ. Yeah, but if you don't know what some of these things look like, except one of my complaints is the rebec is labeled short-necked fiddle and bow, not rebec. More instruments. The serpent, the lure, the sackbut. That's basically the trombone, or precursor to the trombone. And it goes into more about different instruments. And some glossary of musical stuff in case you are playing a bard and you know nothing about music. Some stuff about kinds of songs. Some stuff about how to role play the bard. Okay. Now, somebody told me I should pause when I'm doing this, but the trouble is that when I try to pause, it stops the recording and won't let me pick up from where I left off. Because I have a very primitive device here. Okay, here's some jugglers doing their thing. Yeah, it's more role-playing, nightly performances, bard colleges. There's a great picture. Somebody whispering in the ear of the bard in her underwear. Oh, another great picture of bards. Talks about patrons of the bard. And in the very back, it gives you the first edition bard. And so that makes this, if you can't get hold of the first edition books, that makes this worth buying. Because the first edition one, it was better. And there's a character sheet for the bard. The trouble is, it's 4 pages long. That was one of my complaints about later editions, is there was too much information. So there you have it, the complete Bard's Handbook. So, I wouldn't pay a huge amount for this to get it used. And I thought this would improve the second edition Bard, and it does improve it a little bit, but I'd still rather run first edition Bard. So you might want to buy this just so you can play a first edition Bard. Anyway, I hope this is useful to you.